I
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bonnie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Cerrucci.
Here.
Mr. Gottman.
Here.
Dr. Kalkstein.
Here.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell. Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Mrs. Warning.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here. Apologize for the late start. We had an executive meeting to talk about labor negotiations. Anybody wish to address the board at this time on agenda items? Anybody sign up on it?
No one signed up, no.
Anybody currently in the audience wish to address us on agenda items? Seeing none. Section B, bills and financial reports. Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Section B comprises Section B1, list of bills for the month of March 2018. Section B2, monthly financial statements for the month of February 2018. And Section B3, budget transfers for the month of March 2018. Present these items this evening for the board's review.
Questions or comments on section B? Seeing none. Section C, we don't have anything tabled.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we have the cheerleading thing.
I would like to make a motion to take this off the table,
Second.
and if possible, Mr. Knopf, we can make this an action item to vote tonight on this when it comes to personnel.
Do you want it for personnel, or should we just act on it now?
However, we
Yeah,
can do
you can
this.
act on it right now.
Okay.
I need a second for that?
Yeah, that's
First, have to
second.
We have
Second on
roll
table.
call on the,
on the roll,
to remove from the table.
taking
Right.
off the table.
Okay. Mr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Aye.
Okay, so it's off the table at this point.
And I would like to make a motion to vote, make this an action item for this evening.
Motion to approve. Is that where we're at?
Second.
Second, motion is second. Questions or comments?
We're voting that this supplemental document that's passed around?
Correct.
That's correct. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
What you're doing is you're gonna make this an action item. That's the, now, since the public, this isn't part of your agenda, does anyone in the public want to make any comment concerning the action item that's now being voted upon to be put onto the agenda for action? And that is the supplemental contracts for cheerleading. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to that? Seeing none, now you can vote.
Thank you, Mr. Dice.
Questions or comments?
Sorry.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman. Dr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So now if you want to vote on it, you would make a motion to approve these.
I would like to make a motion to vote on these to be
No, not
approved,
vote, approve or disapprove.
to approve these
That's what we just
That's
voted on.
what
All you
we
did was
just-
you put it on the agenda.
as an action item.
Oh.
Now I'd like to make a motion to vote on this,
To approve.
to approve for this evening.
There you go.
Thank
Second.
you, Mr. Dice.
Takes a lot to get something.
Motion by Bell, second by Mr. O'Donnell. Questions or comments to approve? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
No.
Dr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Section C, we did. Section D, personnel.
Thank you, Mr.
Trump.
Williams. For your review this evening, we have 6 items listed under the personnel agenda. Under resignations, we have 2 resignations and 1 retirement. We would like to congratulate Jim Lombardo on 24 years of service to the district, all of which been done in the same school, which is pretty much unheard of. So we wish him luck and thank him for the service that he's provided to the district. Under leave of absence, we have 6 names listed. Transfers, 5 per the collective bargaining agreement. There probably will be 2 additional ones on the next one, depending on when the bids come up this week. Under employment, we have the employment of the school police officers and also homebound and traditional services. Section 5, there's a resignation for supplemental and also an issuance. And under Section 6, we have 4 volunteers.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. President, should we make the employment of the school police officers an action item?
Yeah, it should be. If you'd like to make a motion to that.
I would like to make a motion for item 4 under personnel, hiring of school police officers to be an action item.
Can we go ahead and combine the homebound and traditional services too, since it's all in the same thing?
You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Let's just do section 4.
Section 4.
Questions or comments from the audience on section 4?
Can I have a question or comments from the board?
You're next.
Thank you.
Seeing none, go ahead, Val.
They are already working, I understand?
Yes.
These officers, okay. I saw Mr. Holman yesterday, that's why I was just wondering.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Monica, we have a roll call?
Mr. O'Donnell,
Aye.
Mr. Ritter,
Hold on one second. We're voting
To put it on the agenda.
For it to be an action item.
Okay.
Then we vote to approve.
aye.
Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Dr. Kalkstein,
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich,
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a motion to vote on it?
I move we approve item number 4, employment for the school police officers and the homebound and transitional service person.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second by Mr. Rucci. Questions or comments? Bonnie, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Dr. Kalkstein, Mr. Lapsevich,
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre,
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on section D? Section E, conferences and conventions.
Dr. Jacob?
Thank you, Dr. Short. In Section E, we have 7 conferences and conventions up for review tonight. In Section 1, as listed.
Questions or comments on conferences and conventions?
Just a real quick comment. Maybe when the agenda's printed, the acronyms could be spelled out. I don't know what CPTED is for Brian T. I assume it's some sort of a police training program. Right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and maybe just, NASRO.
We can have those.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, section F, administrative resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Item number 1, final approval, I'm going to refer to Dr. Rossi.
Item number 1, we have approved revised policy number 918, Title I parent involvement, that was placed on public display beginning Tuesday, February 20th. That was Exhibit A.
These are action items.
Yeah, these are action items. Questions or comments on number 1?
I think you need a motion, so I'll move.
You can do these individually, or?
How are you going to do them?
Do them individually.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so I will move that, we're asking if I will move for the approval of revised policy 918. Is that what's being requested? So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions or comments on final approval of revised policy 918? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mrs. Warning,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci,
Aye.
Mr. Gottman,
Aye.
Dr. Kalkstein,
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich,
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I move that we approve resolution of the Gateway School District hereby authorize the proper district officials to list for sale the property known as the Gateway Middle School, some 26 plus or minus acres.
Second.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Motion and a second. Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second by Mr. Lapsovich. Questions or comments?
So why is this an action item tonight, Mr. O'Donnell?
We need to move on, and it's the time to do it.
So, my concern is that this is gonna go up as a residential property now, since we haven't had a commercial rezoning.
I think it's going to be listed as,
Let me help you with that.
yeah, sure.
It will be listed as it's known presently. That doesn't, that, any buyer that has interest in this property can, on its own, decide to bring forward a counter proposal to us if we get it, if somebody's interested and said, either you get it rezoned commercial or we'll get it rezoned commercial. And then there'll be the discussion about, you can only sell it right now for what it is, and that's residential. If it later can be rezoned to commercial and you still own it, you'll get the benefit of that. If it doesn't get rezoned to commercial while you still own it, and you've given up title to it, then somebody's gonna pay a lesser price as residential. But what I'm trying to say to you is there'll be negotiation with anybody that wants to get this property, because you're gonna say, look, the highest and best use for this property is commercial. And maybe the two, you and the potential buyer, go to the municipality and say, hey, look, we'd like to get this rezoned commercial. In other words, you start all over again.
Right, but you're kind of talking about price.
That's the only thing that concerns me.
Well, what concerns me is that, we've had this conversation before, everybody in this community is concerned about what could possibly go into that property, right? We've had this discussion many times. I mentioned a few at the last meeting, wasn't real well received by a couple people, but, you know, it's good to talk about these things publicly. And for example, another concern that came to me from a citizen, some of the rumors that are out there was, well, what if an institution for, what do I want to say, like a juvenile detention center wants to buy that property, they can put in a juvenile detention center there on a residential property, and we can't really stop them from doing that, can we?
All you can do is list a purchase price. And if the buyer is willing to pay your purchase price, it's none of your business what he puts on the property.
So if somebody wanted to keep a juvenile detention center out of Monroeville, what would they be able to do to prevent that at this point?
Well, if the property's zoned and it permits juvenile detention facilities, nothing you can do.
Okay, so is a commercial zoning, would that prevent a juvenile detention center?
As I recollect, and I don't have the zoning ordinance in front of me, those kinds of uses are not permitted in commercial C2.
So there is something that can be done to prevent a juvenile detention center from moving into that property.
Well, the something is the zoning ordinance. Yeah,
Something would be to rezone the property commercial.
Right, if you want this property to be used in a fashion, you have to first get your zoning to comply with it. In other words, they have to sync up. And if you're not gonna get necessarily all the commercial possible buyers looking at this property since it's zoned residential, you're gonna get some because they're gonna realize that they might be able to get it rezoned. And they'll extend to you probably an option, saying if we can get this rezoned, we'll pay this. If we can't get it rezoned, we'll only pay that.
We're not, there's no intention of putting a price tag on this.
Well, when you put it up for sale, I think your broker's gonna say, well, okay, you got it for sale, now how much,
No.
what's the purchase?
We're not going to say that. What we're doing is we're putting it on the market for sale, and I think we're going to identify it as, you know, property good for commercial development. Okay?
That's fine.
Which is actually what you told me. And this is actually in response to Rick McIntyre, who said, you know, let's be clear that we're putting it up in the market for sale, and so, you know, putting this forward. Now, if somebody comes forward and offers us X amount of money and they want to do what you want to do, we just don't have to accept it.
Generally speaking, I think you could, it's conceivable, you could do it that way, but remember, when you list your house for sale with a realtor, there's a place on that sales agreement that says, this is the amount of money you want.
Yes.
The buyer's gonna say, well, wait a minute, I mean, tell us you want $100 million.
Yes.
And maybe I'll write you a check for it.
Sure.
Tell me it's only worth 10 million. They're gonna want you to set the ceiling. The buyer's gonna say, well, how much do you want for the property?
But I don't think that's in our best interest. I think our best interest is to get out of the market.
Yeah, I think,
and
I know what
solicit
you're trying to
offers.
do, and that is to make the property more available for public input as far as some of the potential commercial buyers.
Right. The overwhelming interest, at least in my judgment, that we're gonna get for this property is gonna be commercial. That's gonna be the highest and best use.
It is.
Now, we're not going to be able to determine the value of this property until we go to market. That's the bottom line.
Right, I realize that, and so
Yeah.
the public understands that it's been advised to us that the next step is to put the property for sale so that we can find out basically what it's worth.
Right.
Did we get our commercial and residential appraisals yet?
No, not yet.
Do we know when we're gonna get our appraisals?
Today.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We're getting our appraisals tonight, and we don't know the values, and we're making a motion to put it up for sale before we have the numbers, as residential property.
It's available for commercial development, but it's currently zoned for residential. But I think we need to understand that commercial developers, during their due diligence period, they're gonna come to understand that the highest and best use is as commercial. And they're gonna offer, if we don't already have it zoned commercially, there's gonna be a contingent offer, contingent upon zoning approval as commercial. So in order for us to validate the appraisal, it's gotta go to market. The appraisal has value, we went out and surveyed it, but the only real measure of a property's value is a willing
what you're gonna
buyer,
get.
a willing seller.
Right. So we all agree that it would be in our best interest, that we would get the most money for this property if it was sold as a commercial
Correct.
property. And that now it's going to have to be contingent probably upon it getting approved for commercial, and it may affect the selling price.
Correct. But I
That's
think,
kind of the position we've been put in.
exactly, you're exactly right. Now, I think Bill is putting together some material to try to advance a movement to get it zoned commercially, but, but as Rick just said, that's the position we've been put in, so.
But it's also my understanding that we can't decline the sale of a property based on conditional use of what the buyer intends to do with that, which is why I have a little bit of reluctance to sell it as a residential property.
But again, we're not putting a price tag on it. If somebody comes forward, we're certainly permitted, to the best of my knowledge, to ask what's the intended use, okay?
But they could buy they could tell us, my intended use is A, they could buy the property, they could turn around and resell it.
That's correct.
Or they could change the intended use, and there's nothing we can do about it.
And that applies under a commercial listing as well.
Yeah, we could
Except a
sell-
commercial
we could sell
listing would
commercial.
keep out some of those things that we want to keep out.
But it might permit some things we don't want.
Like
For
what?
example, I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I own property right down the road, and a permitted use is logging. Forestry use.
Well, that's not permitted in commercial.
Well, okay, it may not be, but I'm just saying, is you right or wrong?
Bad
Just
example.
around the corner, that.
Nice try.
Pardon?
Conditional use is major timbering and logging operation, number 12 of conditional use.
Thank you.
Commercial.
Commercial
Commercial.
C2.
Thank you. John's my solicitor, and as
John's got
such.
the zoning ordinance.
Yes,
I don't care
so
what
I,
I'm done with it.
yeah,
Well, let me give you part 2 of that as well. As Mary Beth said, conditional C2 does not include juvenile delinquent centers. That's not a permitted
Right.
use.
Under
Either
Right.
commercial, whether permitted or conditional, neither one of those
but
allowed.
logging is.
But logging is right.
So
have logging than a
perhaps you've never lived downwind of
I see a
Mill.
beautiful synergy out
Listen, we're gonna be confronted with this scenario no matter what, today, tomorrow, whatever. When we get the appraisal in, which is gonna happen today,
We don't want that out.
Yeah,
It's
I'm-
not
I'm gonna
permitted,
say- I'm
right.
gonna get finished, and I'm gonna say something about the appraisal. Go ahead. Because Mary Beth wasn't there when I made the statements.
I'm done.
We're gonna get this appraisal in possibly tonight, tomorrow. I want you to understand that that appraisal is a private document that's gonna be shared with this board and not the public. It is not subject to right to know. You know, you've gotta keep some of this information close to your vest as this matter goes on. You're gonna have to get court approval of whatever sale takes place. That appraisal is gonna play a role in it. You don't want the potential buyers knowing what the appraisal value is, the appraised value is. Because they may be offering more than the appraised value. And
We certainly hope they
just
are.
don't tell anybody
Yeah.
about the appraisal other than to speak it among yourselves. And I don't know that you were there when I said that. So just remember that as we move forward.
So Steve, with due respect, I'm going to vote no on this when it comes to a vote in a minute or two, because I'm going to hold out for the hope that we're able to get this zoned first as C2, because I still have the strong feeling that will get us the biggest bang for the buck, that allows us to keep all of our cards hidden, which is what we need to do for a sale. And I think that the confusion that occurred a couple weeks ago at that meeting was simply that, confusion that can dissipate over time. People have had a chance now to see, time after time after time, the replay of that event on the local cable access. They saw all the arguments on both sides of it. We wanted to get our cards on the table so the public could know what our intentions are, and that Monroeville Municipal Council and the Gateway School Board both have the best interests of the citizens and the students of the district, not just for us, but for Pitcairn as well. So with respect, I'm going to vote no on this and hold out for C2.
Sure.
Just if I could, really? Now, I'm kind of, I think maybe, there might be some other people on the board who are kind of in the same position where I'm firmly between the two of you right now.
Good.
Where I'm not sure what the right call is. I would say maybe in favor of what you're saying, maybe we vote to table it until we come to a resolution on whether we get the zoning. Coming in, that's kind of where I was leaning, but I'd like to hear something from Director O'Donnell about like why this should happen tonight as opposed to maybe a few weeks from now. What do we stand to gain from putting it on the market as it is now versus waiting a couple weeks, seeing if we get the C2 and then moving from there?
Quite honestly, after talking with the municipal council members, et cetera, I don't have any confidence that we're going to secure a C2 from them until we're able to put a use on the table. And the only way we're going to be able to put a potential use on the table is by getting an offer. And so it's not going to be a couple of weeks. That could be months. It could be months, or we may never get a C2 until we put an offer on the table with a conditional use.
But, Dr. Short, I almost got to miss you. You have a meeting coming up fairly soon, if I'm not correct, if I'm corrected, with another presentation to council, kind of solidifying where we're at. And we're hoping that from that meeting, maybe we get a better flavor of where they're coming down on the vote and whether we move forward on it. And what I'm saying is it going to hurt us if we just wait to see what happens at that meeting? And I'm not disagreeing with you, Steve.
Yeah.
I think you may be right.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the gist I got from that last meeting was we're not going to get it. But right now they're open to listening again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mr. Ritter makes a good point. I think maybe we just hold off on this until we at least sit down with them again, as they've asked us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, if we don't feel like we're gonna get the rezoning, then bam, we move forward the next day with this.
That's a possibility that could happen. That could take 2-3 weeks. It could take 2 or 3 months. I know that as of the last meeting, we don't have the votes to secure that from council, okay? And I don't think it's wise for us to continue to delay placing this property on the market. I just think when we've been, first of all, everybody knows this property is for sale. All right?
Let's just make it official.
We're just making it official, okay? And the more we tarry, the more rates rise, and perhaps the less attractive property being honest from a financial perspective to a buyer. I just think it's in our best interest to get off, to move it ahead.
Dr. Short, do you have a firm date on that meeting?
Not yet. I did speak with the mayor today. We are throwing around a couple dates, and we should have something set soon.
Okay.
So Rick, there's one other wrinkle to this. When Mr. Ron Harvey, the councilman from the Ward 3 where the Gateway Middle School exists, asked a question to the audience there. He said, all who would first like to know who is going to purchase the property before we sell it, say aye. Everybody said aye. Two things about that. He didn't ask the second question. All who don't need to know beforehand, say aye. And I know that there were some there who were willing to do what they call trust the school board in its approach, namely to try to get it zoned C2 first. The other wrinkle with that is, all who would first like to know who's going to purchase the property before we sell it. I want to know that, however, I know it's impossible to know that. I want to know the future, but that desire to know the future doesn't make me able to know the future. And so, if Ron Harvey demands that we first know the future before he votes in favor of it, he's putting an unrealistic expectation on this poor school board. So the way the market works is we step forward and we trust that we will make the best, this board or some future board will make the best decision at this time. And where we are right now is, best decision we can see is to open all options before us, which means we have to get it zoned C2 first. That's how we open the door. So that's why I'm in favor of letting this sit for a while.
Or, you know, if we think that we can maybe make a move on them and get them to turn, if we put it up for sale now, and then this meeting goes the way we want it to, and then we have the rezoning, and then it's already on the market.
I don't care, that's fine.
You know, everything's kind of
Sure.
smooth at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know where you're at, but I mean, it's either we make a motion to approve this now, or or if you want to make a motion to table it.
I've made a motion.
There is a motion on
It's
it?
been seconded.
It was seconded
Oh,
for
yeah, there was a
discussion.
second. Okay.
Yeah.
George, actually.
I'm
Right.
just gonna make a comment too. Steve, on your side, I don't wanna say side, whatever, but trusting that once we do put it up, even if it's as residential, which it is now, that we will have people come forward to find out what needs to be done. Their interest would be saying, okay, we wanna put, for instance, a strip mall. We would have something to go back to council with to say this is a possibility, that, you know, look at it to be rezoned. You're not gonna have anything to come up. So I feel, put it on the market as is.
For clarity, she said strip mall.
I said strip.
Okay, thank you.
Strip. I mean, that's what's going mostly now on the roadway.
Right.
So,
It'll be six mattress firms,
And a guardian
right
storage.
in a row.
With the Starbucks.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
What's this for now?
Really?
To actually make this happen.
Putting it
To
up
put
for
it up
sale
for sale.
residential.
No.
Dr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
No.
Mrs. Warning.
aye.
Motion carries.
Section F, continuing.
So with the rentals, Dr. Shaky?
Up for review tonight, we have two facility rentals, one for Gateway Campus Stadium Sports Complex, all parking lots, concession stand, and one for the Performing Arts Center.
And number 2.
And item number 2, we have overnight excursions, 2 overnight excursions up for review, one for the marching band and one for the Junior Classical League.
Item number 3.
And item number 3, we have student teachers, one Ronald Porter from Point Park University, student teaching at Gateway High School.
Mr. Schott, number of items to follow?
Thank you, Dr. Short. Item number 4, be seeking the approval of the extension of the preventive maintenance service agreement for the 2 high school weight rooms and the 1 Gateway Middle School weight room with G&G Fitness Equipment Incorporated, in the amount of $2,600 for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, as depicted in Exhibit A. Next, item number 5 is to accept the following district donation received during the 17-18 fiscal year, specifically from Action for Healthy Kids. Recipient is Dr. Emily Levine, a teacher at Dr. Cleveland Stewart Junior Elementary School. Utilization of the $100 donation is for the encouragement of healthy habits for students. Next item will be seeking the approval of the award of the bid for the district-wide refuse collection and recycling services at the district's various building locations to Waste Management of Pennsylvania Incorporated for the period July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2023, at the following monthly amounts. Those are as depicted below, and also as depicted is the extra pickup fee, if required, for the various container sizes, also as depicted in the resolution, and also as depicted in Exhibit B to the resolution as well. And the final item, number 7, is to approve the advertisement of the district's milk bid for the milk services and related food items for the district's food service department during the upcoming 18-19 fiscal year. And again, as we've advertised in the past for bids, that'll be done in the Post-Gazette, the Greensburg Tribune Review, and on the district's website.
Questions or comments on Section F? Moving on. Section G, resolutions presented by board members. Do we have any tonight? Seeing none. Comments from residents on non-agenda items. Anybody wish to address the school board at this time? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Jeanette Beagle, and I'm a Monroeville resident. I am here because I wanted, last month, I attended the superintendent's roundtable, and he gave me a copy of the book that you guys use with the elementary students. Phenomenal book, so whoever found it, thank you.
You're talking about the Alice training book we did with the elementary
Be
kids.
Prepared, I'm not scared. As a parent, it was very difficult to read for me because you understand what the backstory is and what they're trying to do. Last week, my second graders had, Ms. Hoffner came in and read the book with them and talked with them. It was unbelievably well received. Did not have fear. They asked questions. They explained. You know, it was. I just want to let you guys know it was an awesome book, and the children received it well. Thank you. But unfortunately, I'm sad that we have to do this training. I'm thankful that we have our police officers here. I have friends all over the country with different school districts who, at this point, are. That's amazing that your district has this. I wish ours did. We're hiring these people and that people, but having your own police force that really makes you appreciate what we have here more. And I just want to let you know, thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none. Reports, we'll start with Ms. Baumgart.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Dr. Jakey,
Nothing at this time.
Dr. Rossi.
Just want to remind the kindergarten registration is ongoing, and we'll have some kindergarten transition activities happening in May, so it's important to register early.
Thank you. Mr. Schott.
Just one item, just to remind everyone that the first Budget and Finance Committee meeting will be held Thursday evening, 6 p.m. in the high school LGI. Thank you.
Trump.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Mr. Dice. Nothing further. Mr. Short. Dr. Short.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Mr. Dr. Short.
No question, these are trying times in education. Just today, as a matter of fact, there was another school shooting in Maryland. And I want to reassure our public, our constituents, our students that we are constantly examining our practices, procedures, and working daily with our school security police and ensuring that our students and staff are safe. And the well-being of our kids is paramount to what we do here. Also, next Wednesday night, the 28th. I believe that is correct, Dr. Chaky. We have the Achievement Gap presentation with Dr. Woods and the LGI.
Dr. Woods hasn't confirmed yet.
Okay, so we will notify everyone via email. We'll post that for the Achievement Gap meeting.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you.
Board reports, we'll start with Dr. Kalkstein.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Gottman?
I know the track season's underway, so I just want to wish our track team the best of luck this season.
Matt Patel.
I'll be very brief. Today's the first day of spring, and it doesn't look like it outside. It's also a day that I remember because it's the first day of spring. It's would have been Mr. Rogers' 90th birthday. So I busted out the card again.
You're dressed like that.
In honor of that.
That's so sweet.
And, you know, in light of some other things, I think, you know, the shooting, the things that Mr. Ritter's going to get into, having to read books is informative and as good as they are. But knowing that we have to do these things, anytime you turn on the internet or turn on the TV or look at your phone, the amount of ugliness and divisiveness that's in this country, in this world right now, I think a day like today, you know, honoring a man like him and his birthday, I think we could all use a little more Mr. Rogers in our lives. So that's just all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Should we wear cardigans next meeting?
Well, you should. Today was his birthday.
You didn't
Yeah,
send
get
a
up.
memo.
I didn't know I needed a memo.
Thank you. My kids loved him.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to just let the public know that the Buildings and Grounds Committee continues to work hard, and that's Valerie and George and Scott, and they put in an awful lot of time throughout the course of the year, and this past week, no exception, so we met for several hours and discussed a number of items. First of all, I'd just like to update you that the Cleveland, Stewart, Ramsey, Evergreen, and University Park electrical interior lighting projects are completed now, and the high school and sports complex stand at about 70% completed. And they should be, the high school should be completed probably over the next 4 weeks or so. The water conservation initiatives, which we've discussed, will be complete at the elementary buildings by 3:30, so the end of this month. The interior lighting rebate, we've already received this is a complicated process that Bob and I think Paul get involved in, but we have received a check for $16,700 from Duquesne Light, and that's a rebate that's related only to the exterior lights that we put up. I believe we're going to be submitting requests for rebates for the elementaries and then the high school. And again, it's a complicated process, but we'll be getting tens of thousands of dollars back for that. We put up 308 lights, I believe, outside, and we put in around 7,000 lights inside. So the rebate coming back will be pretty significant for the interior lights. Now, in addition to that, there's a program that they'll be working on that will generate some additional rebates over the next 4 years, and that is through Bob?
PJM Consortium.
Okay. Oh yeah, you have it here, read the notes, Steve. Okay, so we're just doing really, really well at that point, or at this point. I also want to point out that for all intent and purposes, our committee's work on the $3.819 million budget has been completed. We're done. I'm not going to, unless the board wants me to, I'm not going to report any further on it because everything is either completed, the roofs, the heating and air conditioning, you know, the envelope work has been done. So I'm going to just stop. We're doing well. I'm going to ask Paul Schott to give us a final number, but at this point, we believe we're going to come in somewhere around $400,000 under budget. We estimate, and Bob and Schatzy have done some work on that we'll spend about $3.4 million of the $3.8 million that was authorized. That also includes, by the way, $200,000 in the budget for the renovation work that we have, that we will begin this summer for in the high school restrooms, okay? And I believe Bob indicated to us that he's already starting to gather some of the material that will be used to present to the Buildings and Grounds Committee to redo those. I think there's 10 or 12, 13 bathrooms somewhere in that neighborhood. So he's already off and running on that. We also mentioned at Building and Grounds Committee that most of the signage that was falling over and not needed has been pulled out, except for the ones that Dr. Short and Bob and
Administrators?
yes, and Scott went around and checked out and said we need them, the handicap, the reserve, that sort of thing. So a continued effort to upgrade the quality of the campus. We also spent a considerable amount of time going over the wall at the athletic field. As you know, we've reported previously that's going to be one of our capital projects that we'll be working on over the summer. That's going to probably be the most expensive undertaking that we that will be engaged in. And we have tentatively selected a facade for the wall. So we'll be reconstructing the ends of it, we'll be repairing the middle of it, and we picked a facade that has a 40-year life cycle to it. That will permit the hill to weep, and that can be easily cleaned. It's a tile-like surface, and so we'll be finalizing that and then bringing those suggestions to the board along with some anticipated prices. And I think have we already, Paul, authorized, I know I've asked this, we've authorized the bid for
the wall
for
project.
the wall.
Yes.
So we've
Yes.
already authorized the bid for the wall, so we'll go out to that, and see what that costs us. But our range on that is 550 to 700,000 or somewhere in that range.
Correct.
And the facade that we picked, I think, was around 125,000. We kept in mind and discussed at length that as we move forward to improve the quality of the environment here, whether it's heating or air conditioning or reduce our expenses, we're also trying to be mindful that in upgrading, for example, the wall, that we also make it attractive, because it's, we're all going to be in boxes by the time this thing falls off or doesn't work any further. So we want it to be attractive. We want Gateway to stand out. So we did a considerable amount of work on that. Now, Bob and Bill and the engineer, who else was in there for that? You three guys.
Three of us plus Mike
Shotzi.
from.
Yeah, Chauncey, was he there? But he was down at the far end of the table because he had the flu. Right, okay. So they probably spent about 2 hours on the detail of the construction of the wall. And that's way above my pay grade. We also had some preliminary drawings presented by our architect for facades at Ramsey Elementary, at Evergreen, at UP, and here for the back entrance to the
High school.
yeah, the high school, back entrance to the high school.
The dumpster entrance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've had a lengthy discussion about that, so I won't go into any more detail. At this point, the committee seemed inclined to go forward with the Ramsey facade and the high school facade. We were not impressed with the drawings to the elementary, so we've sent those back and asked them to come forward and bring us some ideas that comported more closely to, I think, Valerie came up with, was it in the book, who showed me that she came up with. So we sort of sent them back and said, come on, bring us something that's that we like a little bit more. So they'll be doing that. The Ramsey Elementary work, I really think when we're able to present it to you, you're going to like it. But it also includes a process of redirecting traffic capturing a lot of that wasted space up front and making it more safe for the children to be discharged in front of the district. So that I think is impressive, and I think it really pulls that program together completely. We also talked with Bob Brown. We've already approved initiatives to bring operations in to beautify the campus. That he's going to pull the trigger on so that it's ready to go at the end of this month, I suspect. Have I missed anything, Valerie?
Do you want to mention anything about the railing that we talked about?
Yes, okay, good. So in the wall design, I'm glad you mentioned that, at the stadium, we will be installing new rails. And those rails are going to be galvanized, powder-coated black rails. They're also going to, the pickets in the rail will be vertical pickets. If you think about it right now, there's like 3 horizontal lines where the kids can tumble through and people climb up and down on it. So this is not only a visual improvement, an aesthetic improvement, but it's also a safety improvement. And those rails are going to be, where new rails are going to be put all through the stadium seating area. We may be removing one course of seats so that, because with the horizontal rails, you go right through. With the picket rails, you wouldn't be able to, so we want to avoid some difficulties there. Bob's going to make a decision, take a look at that and make a decision on that. I think when we're able to bring those drawings in, which can, next meeting? Next month, yeah. Can we do that? Okay. We'll bring that drawing in, and we'll bring the drawing in for Ramsey, and we'll bring the drawing in for,
Put it on the ACTA wall.
yeah, oh, yeah, okay, put on that. And at that point in time, if you have comments or criticisms, you can raise it. But I think you're going to be impressed with those 3. The other 2, that is the facades at UP and Evergreen, we're still discussing, and we may be recommending that those be done in the subsequent year. We haven't made that decision, but I just to alert you, we may be making that recommendation to the board. We've already presented the preliminary list of projects that the Buildings and Grounds Committee will be undertaking, and the only other large project is the dehumidifier, what's that called?
Dectron.
The Dectron system in the swimming pool area. So if you recall, a short time ago, we reported that that broke, pardon? No, I'm fine, thanks. We reported that was that a hint for me? Okay.
Not at all.
We reported that the system broke down, and this is a massive system. It's the size of this room or bigger. That's going to be a pretty significant undertaking, and we're going to get ready. I think we've already approved to go out and bid that. We have some preliminary numbers on that. It's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's also 20 or 25 years old. When it breaks down, you just simply can't use the swimming pool. It just becomes cold in there, and the water is actually warmer. So that's the second large project. We're also dealing with, if you call a marquee, and the scoreboard. And my colleagues have assured me that we'll be able to generate some revenues to offset most or all of the cost of the marquee or the scoreboard. Scoreboard. And those are pretty expensive propositions. But again, our scoreboard is dying. I don't think it works anymore. And our marquee is 24 years old. As we move forward with the marquee, am I right? Am I close on that spot? As we move forward on that project, we're going to be taking down the trees out front, the pine trees, because the project, help me here, what's the word? Marquee will be set back a good way off of the sidewalk. So when you're coming up Route 48, we need a line of sight. If that marquee is set back, those trees will hide it and you won't see it until you're 20 feet away from it. And we want to avoid that.
So we're moving the location
In essence,
of the marquee, correct?
It would be
Yeah.
moving from its current location up to the corner of Route 48
Oh,
and
yes.
Gateway Campus.
Right, I'm
Boulevard.
sorry, that's a good
Yeah.
point. And then I think you told me somewhere around 70 feet offset,
75 feet.
75 feet offset, so it'll be back a good deal, out further and back. So we want to create an open sight line, so we'll be taking those trees down. And there are some other projects, we will be creating the same kind of spreadsheet, passing it around so everybody knows where we are, what our total request will be for budget, and Paul's going to be dealing with that at the Thursday meeting. And then as we move through the bidding process and doing it, we'll keep everybody up to date. And that's it, thanks very much. But the committee's doing great work, and our staff does great work. It's just going along really well. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Mr. Lapsovich.
Yes. Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything because Mr. O'Donnell here did superb work with us all together, but only thing with his wall that we picked out, it not only was the most attractive wall, a most durable wall, and you're able to clean it with the power washer, and it had a 40-year life compared to the other two walls that had a 30-year life, and it was $120,000 cheaper than the other two walls, which I felt was the right move. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Warren?
I am very upset, Mr. Lapsovich, you forgot to congratulate someone, but I will take care of that. First off, I want to congratulate our girls' basketball team. I got some comments about Mr. Lapsovich and myself leaving the past couple meetings to go see them play, but when you see them starting out at the beginning of a season and
We all should have gone.
well, I'm just saying, George and I, we did get some heat about it, but when you see them starting out at the beginning of a season and they're all over the place, they had 10 girls total, and watching them at the Peterson Center with the team just all together, just diving on each other, it's something you can't explain it. You have to be there to see it. And then when they moved on to states and going to the different venues that we did, an hour, 2 hours away, when these girls see you walking in, you're a fixture. They look for you to come in, and they say, I can't believe you came here. And, it's just, I would do it over again. I had asked Mr. Williams to adjust this agenda so that we would be here for the votes, and, he kindly did, and we were able to make it, and just that they did not do their best. Well, they did their best on Saturday, but they didn't, finish to the end. But congratulations, the Whitfield champs. And on that note, I want to also, I don't know if we consider this a donation or not, but Chase and Wraps, he has been kind enough to donate 2 of the signs that have been up on 48 and 22, congratulating the football team and the girls basketball team at no charge. And I just wanted to thank him again publicly for his work and the donation with that. And congratulations again, girls, you great job. Mr. Schott had already said about the budget meeting on the 22nd, and there will be also another one on April 10th, because we will have the meeting, and I just wanted to make sure that it's on the list. April 20th, 21st, 22nd, 27th, and 28th, the Fiddler on the Roof. Tickets are on sale now. Mr. Helchi, Mr. Servi, fantastic job. The kids are doing a great job, constantly practicing. Get your tickets, don't miss it. National Honor Society was last week. Mr. Ritter, Mr. Lapsovich, and myself. Dr. Short gave a fantastic speech.
Thank you.
Only they had brown shoes with their blue seats on. We couldn't kind of figure that out, but I always ask them. But
What's the style now?
watching these kids, the number of athletes, the number of students that are there, I mean, it's just amazing to have a 3.7 and be involved in everything. There was not one student that was just there that did their studies. They were involved in multiple clubs, multiple sports. So kudos to all you. Congratulations to Olivia Livingston. She was, again, first.
Smoking.
She was smoking. She took first in the 50 freestyle again and came in second in the 100 freestyle. She tied her record from last year, where she broke the record at 22.71 in the 50 yards. And 50-yard freestyle, correct?
I think it's
Mr. Ritter?
50 meter.
50
I think it's 50 meter.
meter.
Yeah.
Well, she took first and second, and congratulations on her. I believe we'll probably be seeing her in the upcoming Olympics. Spring break will be March 30th. We are making up 2 days, March 29th and April 2nd, due to the snow days that we had. PSSA test will be starting next month, so parents, be prepared with that, getting your kids on time. And hard to believe that yesterday we did have a baseball game up on our field. Fields are ready to go. I don't think there were any complaints. I don't know what they did. Haven't seen the score. Mr. Williams, I'm not sure what the score was, but they did have the fields ready to go. Gateway Middle School on the 23rd is having a science and engineering fair. I believe parents can stop and see it. The kids have done an awful lot of work. March 23rd. March 22nd, they are also having Spotlight on Youth at 7 o'clock in the auditorium. Evergreen today, Max and Irma's is still open, is having their fundraiser, if anybody hasn't eaten yet. And on the 26th, they're having Muffins with Mom. The 22nd, April 11th, UP is having their, March Math Madness, but it's changed to April Math Madness, which is a fantastic program that they have for the students and parents. They have a lot of different math games in the evening, and the kids go around with their parents. It's amazing. The parents don't know the answers when the kids do. So thank you to our teachers that are going above and beyond. A little information that Micah had put out in the newspaper with Mr. Schott, I believe, advertising the computer technology sale, which is going to take place tomorrow for the pickups. From the posting in the 2 advertisements that we did, we got a grand number of 2 people that replied. So I'm hoping that we can maybe put a blast out again to the staff, to the students, because we have quite a few technology items still left. And I will be here to hand out the 2 computers tomorrow that people have asked for. So, another thing, our sea perch with Mr. Stukanis that has worked with this. The middle school, the 8th grade robotics team has engaged in the sea perch marine engineering competition. There were 38 teams that competed on Saturday at the high school and 19 middle schools. The team consisting of Amy Hayes and Jaden Hunkel placed first overall, and the team consisting of Sarani, Zai, and Madeline Ray placed 3rd overall in the middle school division. The first place team for each of the regionals will advance to the International Sea Perch Challenge and Challenge June 1st to the 3rd at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. And I would like to congratulate both of those teams on their performances and wish Jaden and Amy good luck at the International Challenge. The high school technology Sea Perch Challenge. Which Sea Perch, I don't know if everyone knows what that is. It's grown into an international competition that's supported by the United States Navy. It provides students with the opportunity to learn about underwater robotics. The Sea Perch Challenge incorporates science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is known as the STEM skills, which building and competing in an underwater remotely operated vehicle. Our team at the high school, consisting of, let me find them here, Nate Ridge, Ryan Young, and Naske from Bada. They placed 3rd overall, and the team of Cameron Earhart and Emmerich Daly placed 10th overall in the high school division. And I just want to congratulate these kids for taking on a challenge and learning more about the underwater robotics. And last but not least, I have to send out kudos to Jesse Smalley. He's one of our tech guys. He has received his 100,000th ticket at work. when we talk about tickets, we're talking from about, I can't receive email, or my computer's not coming on, or the screen isn't working, multiple things. There's, the copier's not working, and he started working since here at 2006, and to have 10,000 tickets that he has completed. That's saying an awful lot. There's several other texts, but these have all gone to Jesse, and congratulations, Jess, and our technology department, Micah, for going above and beyond the call with everybody's problems that they have in keeping the district up and running. And with that, I end. Thanks.
Mr. Ritter.
Sure, a couple things. There was a special election last week. The Cleveland Stewart Elementary School was host to some of the voters from the area. Gateway School Police Force provided a net of safety there for the school. So thank you very much, Dr. Short, for providing that. Number two, Forbes Road Career Technical Center held an open house last Thursday. My mother went. She was most fascinated with the advanced manufacturing department. She stood there among all these great big machines that grind metals and all that kind of stuff for about 15 minutes. I'm there, Mom, you either got to sign up or we got to go. Because right after that, the Gateway School District hosted the National Honor Society ceremony. Alex Blake, a member of the track team, served as host. He did a terrific job of providing an umbrella of affirmation to all the inductees to the National Honor Society. My nephew, my grandmother's grandson, Brendan Majaka, was there, and as far as Grandma knows, no, that's all that matters. Brendan got another honor. Okay, so the last part, and this is the most difficult part. There was a school shooting today in Maryland, as Dr. Short mentioned. A couple of the folks that were on the news mentioned that it wasn't too long before that they had an affirmation gathering regarding school safety, and there it was a few days later, they had a school shooting right there on their campus. All right, so here at Gateway, we had some students go out to the football field area for a safety affirmation event a few days ago. The students gathered together on the field to affirm their part in creating and maintaining a safe campus environment by taking a formal stance against social and verbal abuse, against disrespect, against bullying, and especially against violent physical attack. And in favor, that's what they were protesting or affirming against, but on the flip side of that, they were taking responsibility for being good neighbors, finding that kid in the lunchroom who's lonely or maybe undergoing a troublesome burden. Some of these kids get pushed to the end and they find no way out except to strike out, to show somebody else the pain that they are in. It's a cry for help. So that's one of the ways that we can provide an umbrella of safety here by the students taking responsibility for creating a safe environment by saying to some of their school classmates, we don't say that here, we don't do that here, back off, you know. That's not what Mr. Rogers would want us to do. So thank you very much, Mr. McIntyre, for bringing that up. What a wonderful teacher Mr. Rogers was to many of the teachers here in school and the kids growing up, to set that approach of being a good neighbor and affirming, I like you just the way you are. I mean, doesn't that reduce the tension that we sometimes have here in the schools? And it could save a life or save someone emotionally, save a breakup. So I also like the fact that the students gathered together and demonstrated their personal commitment to, quote, never bully, never hit, never hurt, and to expect the same from their peers. I would like to go to a school like that, wouldn't everybody? So thank you, students, for doing that. They expressed a strong desire to make their school a safe environment, a safe place for their peers. So students, faculty, administration, and especially Mr. Rogers, well done. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thanks.
We only have about 10 or 15 things here. Just kidding. I don't really have anything. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Lombardo on 24 years of service. That's amazing. And I was going to bring up the spotlight on youth event that Val mentioned. There's a lot of competition, Mr. Shaw, on Thursday night for events, and there'll be some fine musicians performing Thursday night, including my son. So I'll make it over to the budget meeting as soon as possible. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'd just like to say hats off to the school board here. They keep us well informed of everything that's going on. And I don't want to be redundant, but I agree, congratulate every kid and everybody that was involved tonight. And with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I make a motion that upon adjournment, we go into executive session for just about 5 minutes over contract negotiations?
And then we'll,
So you're recessing into executive session. Coming out of executive session, there'll be no further votes and only an adjournment will be.
Can we just stay here then?
Well, I go back there.
We'll go back there.
20 minutes to get everybody out.
Okay.
I need to make that official. All in favor,
Yeah.
all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.